Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Chris Dashew.
We've asked ourselves if there was a Mrs. Columbo on many episodes, and God, we didn't need the answer. But apparently we did.
Yes, we've braved the world of Mrs. Columbo. No, we're not talking about all of Mrs. Columbo, not all 13 episodes split out over 2 seasons, which seems pretty skint. The first season was only 5 episodes long, and I don't think that these are all hour and a half episodes, because the one we watched was about 45 minutes?
45 minutes, yeah.
We went through, or I went through, and Chris was kind enough to support my decision. I went through all of the ratings of Mrs. Columbo, the TV series that ran 2-ish seasons way back in 1979 to 1980. It debuted in February of 1979. I believe that Peter Falk didn't want to have this happen. I don't think Lincoln Levinson wanted to have this happen, but it happened anyway, mostly because of Fred Silverman, who was a big shot at, I believe, CBS, and then Richard Allen Simmons, who has been the showrunner that we were decrying over the last season of proper Columbo. So I went through all of IMDb. I said, give us the best episode of Mrs. Columbo that we can watch. The one that came up to the top was the 5th episode of the 2nd season, and it is called A Chilling Surprise. It aired November 22nd, 1979, directed by Phil Leacock and written by E. Arthur Kean. And the biggest thing for this one for me was Armand Assante is in it. So, we're coming up on big celebrities when Armand Assante is right there in the middle of this episode. Chris, what did you think of A Chilling Surprise?
I'd like to point something out for those of you playing along at home with us. This is not Mrs. Columbo. This is, what would the show's name have been at this point? Kate Loves a Mystery or Kate the Detective? Because she's not even called Mrs. Columbo in this episode. Yes, Mrs. Columbo flashes on the screen at the beginning of the episode, but she's not referred to as Mrs. Columbo. She's Kate Callahan, which is not Columbo's name, clearly. This is really bad. In like a way that bad TV is bad. It feels like 40 minutes of a waste of time. Kate Mulgrew is given very little to do, shockingly. Armand Assante is in it, sure. To what end, I guess, is the real question. He's, I would say, the most charming part of the episode in an otherwise kind of flat episode. This is such a derivative take on Columbo. This is so lazy and not at all interesting that it's insulting that this is Columbo, or even Columbo adjacent, because all they're doing is trafficking in the name Columbo. That's it. And they're not even trying to hide it.
No, absolutely. And this is not a how catch 'em. This is a whodunit. And they are really pointing all fingers toward Armand Assante to the point where I'm just like, obviously he could not have done it, just because everything is pointing. There's a big flashing sign over his head that says guilty. And I just, it was so cut and dry that I was like, this is not how we run these shows. There's obviously somebody else moving things around and is gumming up the works, and everything is pointing towards Assante. But even though he normally plays villains, at least that's how I see him. I mostly associate him still with Rico, Judge Dredd's brother from that horrible Judge Dredd movie. But he is having fun.
Judge Dredd movie.
He's
amazing
having
Dredd
fun, man.
Movie.
The law. That's like my favorite.
I am the law. Back in the day, we got to interview Armand Assante because of Judge Dredd. So
nice. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's just kind of given a raw deal here because this episode is poorly written and uninteresting. And the framing device that they use, which is to say no framing device at all, is just, it's nothing. It's not, you could have named this whatever. And they did. That's the unfortunate part, is it ends up being so not Columbo that they can literally rename it whatever they want and try to pass it off as not Columbo.
I'm very curious if there are versions of this that have the other title to it. Because, yeah, for sure, by this time in the second season, they were not calling this Mrs. Columbo anymore. But like you said, the version we watched has a Mrs. Columbo tag on here. So, as best I can figure out, she is now a reporter, not a housewife. She's a reporter. She works at a paper, and Henry Jones, one of the greatest character actors, he's her editor. And then Don Stroud, because we always have this relationship where it's the reporter with the cop, and the cop doesn't believe the reporter. And in this era, and really since I've been alive, it's the whole thing of you should probably listen to the person who actually can back up their story. Otherwise, especially when it comes to women, it's what a hysterical jerk this person is. They're lying. There's no way that this is the truth. And she gets caught in that, twice? This whole body moving thing keeps happening to her. And everybody just doubts what is going on. And they just make her seem like she's being gaslit.
Does that make for a fun episode?
No, not really. I was really paying attention to how the other women characters are being portrayed in this episode, which I guess it's just the way that my brain works now, looking at something from 1979 and being like, okay, how did they actually treat these female characters? How many of them are just purely sex objects, but then the main sex object is actually the head chef, which was interesting. I was happy about that. And there is one woman who is really casting doubt with Kate, but then later is, oh, actually, I understand what you're saying. And that kind of switches. But then, of course, towards the end, it's a woman that kind of sells out Kate, because when she goes looking for the safety deposit box, and we'll talk a little bit more about the plot, she ends up calling somebody. This woman at the bank calls somebody and says, you wanted to know whenever somebody asked about this safety deposit box, have I got a story for you? So it's a woman that sold you out. What the hell, Kate?
Aren't the optics of that strange?
It is. And I'm glad that I'm a jerk enough, woke enough to pay attention to that stuff. But I feel it's very important, especially when looking back at old media and seeing like how people were being portrayed, even in a quote unquote modern era like 1979.
And I'm with you on that. I'm disappointed we don't get to see the how the hell do they make this work that she's a housewife solving murders or crimes. I'm disappointed we don't get to see that, because this is just a very basic, straightforward workplace whodunit. Really, in a lot of ways, no different than Kolchak or other shows like this we've watched, where it's just this character is on the trail or on the hunt for something, someone, and that's the entire show. It doesn't feel as structured as Columbo. It feels like this weird Columbo through a dark lens of someone who doesn't understand what made Columbo Columbo. And instead of hanging their hat on their own thing, they could have done any number of things here. They don't do anything. They don't do anything interesting. I guess they do here's how I think it happened, and they show like a reenactment of it, which reminded me a little bit, and I can't believe I'm comparing it to this, to Hannibal with Will Graham, not the movie, but the show, where it's like he can see in his mind the things happening and he recreates it. That's maybe the most interesting thing that they do, but even are they doing that in every episode? Is this her talent or her thing? If she's not a investigator and she's just a journalist, she doesn't need to have a thing like Columbo does. She could just be a reporter who's good at her job.
Yeah, and there's a little irony as far as Don Stroud not believing her story. And then by the end, he starts to get convinced by her story, because we should say that the thing that is gaslighting her or wrong-footing her is that she's friends with this restaurant entrepreneur guy, and his partner is Armand Assante. The guy who runs the restaurant is, I believe, is it Nicholas Coster, who plays Zev Arno? Quite a name. Nicholas Coster, you have seen him 1,000 times. He was on Dallas for a long time that I remember, but he was Markham in All the President's Men. I think he was also on Next Gen for at least one episode. Very, very famous character actor. And he is complaining he doesn't feel well at this restaurant, and he goes out, and Kate runs to get a doctor because he collapses, and when she comes back, he's nowhere to be found. And there's also this shadowy detective guy who's hanging out in the wings as well. So a lot of things are being thrown at him as far as, oh, maybe he's the killer, but really everything, just like I said, keeps pointing at Armand Assante, who just seems to be taking it. Every time he opens up his mouth, he seems to make himself more guilty. But yeah, eventually Don Stroud, the detective character, is just like, okay, maybe I do believe you, Kate, like towards the end of the episode. And by that time, she's like, no, she never says you were right all along. But yeah, no, all of this stuff that I've been putting forward is not true. And it's actually this thing over here. And it just doesn't do anything for their relationship. And I'm so tired of these. This is 1979. How long has this been going on when it comes to the scrappy reporter or the scrappy female character? She could be, I don't know, working for the Jeffersonian and doing a lot of things with bones. And then there's the FBI agent who doesn't believe her, but then they eventually have maybe a romantic thing. I don't know if she and Don Stroud ever get romantic on this show, but it's all set up that way, especially that she has this, and I don't think this is Columbo's daughter. She has this daughter with her as well. And it's okay. So we're trying to create this nuclear family by having this. And you even have Dad, who's being basically played by the Henry Jones character, where he's the curmudgeon-y uncle. He's the Vincenzo to this whole thing. But even Vincenzo has a way better relationship. Henry Jones, I don't know if he shows up in more episodes, but he's barely in this episode.
Yeah, he's barely in it, and he's really not given a whole lot to do, which seems like a shame for someone of his caliber in terms of actors.
Exactly. Yeah, you would think like he would maybe be like the Watson to her Sherlock Holmes. There's usually a character like that. I think of, oh gosh, I can't remember Robert Sean Leonard from House, where he was always the one who would talk with House towards the end and say something, and then House would glom onto it and have the big eureka moment and have to storm out of the office. He couldn't storm out because he was limping all the time, but he would limp out of the office and then go in and yell at the rest of the team and say, "It's not lupus."
And that's the thing for me, is like this show, and yes, we only watched one episode, but this show, I don't even think it could realistically ever get there. It doesn't, and you've mentioned him a little bit, and I think it's worth talking about the George Springer, or the Don Stroud of it all, right? The Don Stroud of it all, in my mind. Him and Kate Mulgrew aren't bad together, but could that back and forth really sustain an entire show?
I can't see that.
Because it barely sustains in an episode.
Yeah.
I also feel like, and again, this is to your point from before, I feel like in my mind, if you're going to have this kind of back and forth, will they, won't they bullshit, the two people have to be charismatic to begin with, and they're not. They're really not. Not at all together are they charismatic with one another. And I don't know what universe they saw the way that the two of them were together and were like, this is what we want to hang our hat on for this show, is these two people together. And they're like weird. She has more chemistry with Armand Assante, frankly. Yeah. And he's only in this show for one episode, ostensibly. I'm assuming it's only one episode.
There's definitely a lot more, because Armand Assante feels very much alive when he's making a lot of interesting faces. But yeah, he just definitely has a lot of charisma, and I've seen that in other films that he's been in as well. Every time he's on screen, I'm interested in watching him. Every time that Don Stroud is on screen, and I do like Don Stroud for other things. I want to say he was in some biker films and some really good exploitation film. Yeah. I got that little Tarantino bump, but yeah, I think Django Unchained possibly was a reference to Angel Unchained, which he was in way back in 1970. So, yeah, it was kind of nice to see him still show up. And he was in, hey, License to Kill, too, which we talked about on our Rankin' on Bond podcast.
I don't dislike Don Stroud as an actor. I just don't think he's given anything to do here any more than Kate Mulgrew is. And I think that's the funniest part about this is how do you waste Kate Mulgrew, who would go on to have a massive television career? Here's the thing. We know that Kate Mulgrew will go on to helm her own show and be the lead in a Star Trek spinoff. If you were to watch this, you would get none of that. Literally none of that.
No, though I really got mad at Kate Mulgrew when I finally watched there was a documentary. Oh, I can't even remember if it was about Next Gen or if it was about Deep Space Nine, but there were a lot of interviews with her, and there were clips of her making fun of Genevieve Bujold, who was almost Captain Janeway. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Why are you making fun of another actress who didn't get the role that you did? Have a little fucking decorum, would you?
That's weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. I was just like, this is strange.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah.
I have perceived Kate Mulgrew not that way, so that's a little odd for me. Because, I assume that she's not prickly like Shatner is, but maybe she is.
Yeah, or maybe she just thought it was a hilarious thing, because I remember her saying, when Genevieve Bujold said it, because she's got that thick French-Canadian accent, she said, engage. Oh, oh. And I'm like, what? Really? What are you doing? Why do you have to make fun of the person that didn't get the role that you got?
Haha, their life didn't change and mine did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. The optics of that are weird.
Yeah.
I mean, the optics of this show are weird. I know that Columbo was a massive success and that people wanted more Columbo. We get that, right? And I understand that that's the reason behind the show, but this was not the best foot forward. I don't even feel like this was a genuine attempt. And maybe those first 4 or 5 episodes of that first season are much better, but my God, this is one of the worst things I've ever watched for a podcast. It's pedantic, it drags, and Kate Mulgrew is not interesting. And the people in the episode are not interesting. It's about as cookie cutter as it gets, other than having Armand Assante being the one who's ostensibly framed for everything.
For 45 minutes, it felt like an hour and a half.
That's the worst thing about this, is that specifically. It drags so much that it feels 3 times the length. It's like, my God, this is a 40-minute episode of a show. It shouldn't be like this. This is actually the last thing this should be.
Yeah, and it does. It takes forever. I mean, there's finding the restaurateur's dead body twice. First time, I guess he wasn't alive. Second time he was. And you kept waiting for there to be more of an aha, gotcha type of moment, but really it never ended up being there. If the guy hadn't eventually been killed for real, she never would have solved this case, because she's there chasing her tail the whole time, putting it together that this wouldn't have worked, this whole time delay, because she gets gaslit a second time, because she goes in, she finds the dead body in the freezer, and then comes out, calls her buddy, goes outside, allegedly is looking at the door, and in 8 seconds, this whole thing takes place. And I'm just like, 8 seconds? That's your time estimate? And that's how long it took for this other murder to happen? That's pretty wild. But okay, we see that shadowy man. He's ends up being in the meat locker afterwards. And they're just like, how could this have happened? And she's, I have no idea. And then they start to try to recreate the crime. And she's, it's impossible, until she finally figures out if I stood over here, and if it was 2 people, then this might actually work out. But that doesn't really tell her, obviously, that guy was still alive then. It takes a while for her to finally get to that point.
We were supposed to believe at one point that this is Columbo's wife, who can't solve a murder aside from the fact that they essentially let her solve it by being stupid. I like it's. I don't understand even what the point of having her be this inept is if she's supposed to be Columbo's wife. Columbo is the least inept detective on TV, and she is made to be a complete bumbling moron.
Yeah, I'm really curious how much they lean into her being Columbo's wife. Is that a thing that they have earlier in the show? Because yeah, like she makes no mention of her husband at all in this. It really feels like she's divorced because she's got her name and then she's got her daughter.
Eyes for Don Stroud too.
And her eyes for Don Stroud. I'm just like, okay.
I had to remind myself when I was watching it that this was a Columbo thing.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I was like, why are we watching this? Because this woman acts like she's not married because she's not Mrs. Columbo. So it's what is even the point anymore? I understand and appreciate that they tried to fix it in the second season, but just don't even do a second season. This is not even, well, if we change the name, it's not like an Edge of Tomorrow thing where it's like, if we change the name, more people might show up. It's like, no, this is not good. And in it not being good, you can't name change fix anything.
With 13 episodes exactly, that is an order for a mid-season replacement. With her showing up, the show showing up February of 1979, and then this episode that we're talking about is November of 79. So they played, okay, I'm looking at the dates here. So they start in February, they go Feb, March, and then it goes on hiatus. I feel like they just had a mid-season replacement with her, played the 5 episodes, and then they said, you know what, we have the rest of this run. We should do that next season, because then the next season, let's see, we start October, November, December, and then nothing until March. I can't even imagine how many people tuned out between December 6th and March 19th. That's crazy. And that last episode, also directed by E. Arthur Kean, who goes by the name Alan Smithy in that last episode. So wasn't happy about it, it sounds. That one is about a former Czechoslovakian freedom fighter who's now a chief suspect in the murder of a video dating service worker. Wow.
Wow, that sounds like a Mad Lib if I've ever heard one.
Yes.
Give me a country, Czechoslovakia. Give me a job. Recording machine artist. Czechoslovakia, an ex-immigrant murders of people. Like, what the fuck is this show? Seriously, what is this show in a lot of ways? It's such a weird vestigial anomaly that still exists in the TV industry because there's a fucking Dune TV show that was not needed, is not interesting, could not have been any less of a fucking wet fart if you've ever heard one. And yet they're still doing it. So they still are trying to ham fist their way into people like X. So let's give them more of it. It's, but you can't just hang your hat on that alone.
I'm looking back through the first season. It looks like these episodes are also, okay, so the pilot, Word Games, that was an hour and a half. After that, it looks like they all switched to about 44 minutes. I'm looking at episode 3, A Riddle for Puppets, which has the guy who was the ventriloquist on Soap all those years ago. So I guess that was his shtick, was I'm going to be on here. I think it's Jay Johnson. Had his puppet and showed up on this one as well. So and you mentioned Renee Auberjonois was in an episode. I saw Ted Danson was in an episode. So we had some decent guest stars in here. Obviously, they're not pulling down Hollywood royalty like Columbo would, but some decent stars. And this was just a weird thing. So what I was trying to say before with the whole 13 episode thing is, I don't think that this was 2 seasons. I think this was 1 season. They just split it up over basically a full year's time.
It smacks of something, like you said, that existed for a singular purpose, and that's not to do anything other than further the Columbo brand, make some money, and hopefully maybe we can make something of this. And Kate Mulgrew is lucky that she wasn't like, I wouldn't say run out of town because of this, but Kate Mulgrew's lucky that her career had a really high upside, because this is a really bad start to your career, like genuinely. And this is the thing. She doesn't look great in this either. So it's not, well, she looks great and it's just the writing. Like she's just kind of not given much to do and doesn't even really rise to the occasion either way. And so I don't know. It's just, you got to wonder. You've really got to wonder. I know that they tried really hard in the days of Joni and Chachi and Happy Days and doing all that, but not every time you do it is going to work. And boy, this is a good example of that. And there are plenty of these kinds of things. It's just, for me, it feels really weird that Columbo has one, because Columbo is not a thing where I'm like, yeah, that's a thing that needs a weird sideways sequel show. Like, not even remotely is this a thing like that.
It is just purely a money grab. They're like, oh, cool. We can take Columbo and make this offshoot of it. So it looks like maybe they retooled it before that second season, because I'm looking at the credits for the first season. I'm seeing an empty ashtray with a cigar in it. I'm seeing dog. I'm seeing her, basically it's her hands moving all of these, or an actress's hands moving all these things around. And then we have her sit down at the typewriter. Again, very a la Volchak. No scary monster frightens him or her or anything. But even by the second episode, we do have her in this opening sequence anyway, working at the newspaper. In this episode that I'm looking at, it must be from the French DVD set, because I think you told me recently that it was released in full on DVD in France, and under that name it was Madame Columbo. So the episode 2 is Le Mystère de Lily Corday, as opposed to Murder as a Parlor Game. Maybe the French love it just like they love Jerry Lewis.
I am glad that this show failed, but I want to say, and this is the thing we haven't talked about, and this is the thing I want to ask you. Was it not obvious to everybody involved how bad this was going to be, because Peter Falk said, fuck you, I'm not doing this, and Lincoln Levinson said, fuck you, we're not doing this? Why was that not enough? I know why it wasn't, but you're going to call the show Mrs. Columbo, and Columbo's never going to show up? Yikes.
That's the joke, see? She never shows up on Columbo. Now we're going to have Mrs. Columbo, and he's never going to show up on her show. Isn't that clever?
That's a joke.
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
No, it's fucking lazy, because this time it's lazy. You're right. I guess maybe that's the thing. I don't know. Is it lazy the other way too? No, because it's not the point of the show. Here, when you go into the show, the literal fucking expectation is Columbo isn't going to be in this in some capacity because it's called Mrs. Columbo. Peter Falk would never have come 2 fucking feet near this goddamn thing. And nobody did. Nobody involved in the original show had anything to do with this, for good reason.
It's funny because there were directors who worked on this that had worked on Columbo. I know Leo Penn had directed an episode. And again, I think that's the Richard Allen Simmons of it. I want to say, Boris Segal worked on the pilot episode. So there are crossovers. And then even to the point of, I think it's the second episode, The Murder as a Parlor Game, that has Donald Pleasance as is in there. And I don't know if he's the murderer or not. I doubt that he drinks a lot of wine in that episode. But so there is these weird crossover things. But at the same time, a paycheck is a paycheck. So I don't blame Donald Pleasance for anything when it comes to this. The other guys, they're probably also just, whatever, give it to me, I'll shoot it. But yes, for me, it's like Fred Silverman and Richard Allen Simmons. What the hell are you guys doing? Don't do this stuff. The reason Richard Allen Simmons came to the fore so much was because it was always like Falk having to trust his showrunners so much. So I'm just like, wow, what a betrayal of trust to make this new show.
And the other thing, and look, to go to an example that's a little out of left field, Robert Englund showed up in Freddy's Nightmare, the television show, but he did the wraparounds. That's how you're going to do it if you're going to do that kind of thing. This is the thing where this is just a literal bait and switch. This is just lazy and really, like you said, smacks of a cash in, but they did. It wasn't even successful. So that's the thing. It's like, this is what happens when you try to do this.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
No, it's strange which shows actually succeed that are spin-offs of things. And there are probably a lot of spin-offs of stuff that we don't even know were spun off of other things. But I think of stuff that was going on in the 1970s, like MASH. MASH was huge. MASH ran for 11 seasons. The finale of MASH was one of the highest rated programs in history, apart from Super Bowl performances. It was ginormous. And that's when everybody still had the few networks and everything. Do you look at something like Fargo, and you forget that Fargo was spun off twice. Once with Kathy Bates, where it was much more of a comedy kind of thing. And then what Noah Hawley did, which is so far afield and so smart the way that he does it. That's great. But like you said, Hannibal, you brought up Hannibal, and that was a very smart way of doing things as well. And also they were a little hamstrung because of the rights issues that were going on with Dino De Laurentiis. So there were certain people, certain characters that they couldn't even talk about on the show. But despite that, they still made a very entertaining show.
That's the thing that I think is maybe a more of a now thing to so much more of your point, that we are living in a time when people can go, I'm going to make a thing, but I'm going to make a Star Wars thing, but it doesn't have to be the Skywalkers. I'm going to make an alien thing, and it doesn't have to be Ripley. I'm going to do something, and it's just going to be set in this broad, massive universe that I don't understand why anybody didn't want to play in to begin with. If I were to make a Star Wars thing or a Game of Thrones thing or most IPs, why the fuck would I fuck with the main thing that they've already had established that's done its job and made this so popular? I would go to the other end of the universe, galaxy, what have you, and stay far away. Because, and that's the problem with this show, is this universe wasn't some interesting, exciting universe. It's just LA. So the fact that Mrs. Columbo is just running around in LA just goes, why isn't Columbo solving these? Frankly, that's my question here. Not why is Mrs. Columbo so inept? It's like, why isn't Columbo just solving these? Oh, because she's the B team? The optics of that are fucking weird.
It feels like even if she was going to start doing some of the shtick, but by this time, second season, apparently that's when they firmly declared that she was no longer with Philip Columbo. And that's why she went back to Callahan, which I believe was her other husband, Harry Callahan, I think.
He lives in San Francisco now.
He's down in San Francisco. They visit on occasional weekends. She takes the daughter down to visit him.
Is that not intentional?
I don't know if it is or not. It feels like it, though, right?
I don't know. It seemed like it to me.
You're going to pick the name of another very famous male detective. Sure. So it'd be like calling her Mrs. Poirot.
But Poirot never shows up in the show.
Nor does she say, well, I ran this past my husband, and he said something about little gray cells, and then he touched his mustache, and then he came up with this potential answer. Because that was the thing that I love about Columbo when he talks about Mrs. Columbo, is that in all of his stories, she's the one who's the fan of this. She's the one who knows about that. And the whole shtick about his whole family. Oh, yeah, I've got a nephew who's really into those things. Oh, yeah, I've got a nephew who's doing this thing. Oh, my brother-in-law says this. There's always something that will bring it back into this and creates this false sense of human interest where it's like, oh, yeah, I would love to get your autograph for my wife. He's complimenting the person while at the same time probably 100% bullshitting them.
No, Mike. Mrs. Columbo actually exists.
If you say so.
That's my takeaway from this is like, all right, I guess that's what it's for me. The Mrs. Columbo of it all reminds me of, was Deckard a replicant?
Oh my God, get out of my head, Chris. That's exactly what I was just thinking.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry. If that was your takeaway from Columbo, go rewatch Columbo. Like, I don't know what to say, really. Was McCready the thing? Could you not just watch the movie and enjoy the movie?
Yeah.
For fuck's sake?
It can be and it can't be all at the same time. That's really okay. Columbo could have a wife or not have a wife. It really doesn't matter. It's
right.
think about either way.
It's literally so unimportant, it should not matter. And yet, that is not what this show cares about. This show cares about shoehorning in Mrs. Columbo and then pulling up 2 seconds off the ground because we're about to crash. So it's not Mrs. Columbo anymore. Doesn't matter. The damage has been done. This isn't interesting enough in any other capacity to justify existing past you changing it from Mrs. Columbo.
Yeah, this was really rough.
I'm not going to say, Mike, why, Mike, why? But why, Mike, why?
We are between seasons right now, and there's a lot of stuff that we need to kind of catch up on. So I think, what did we decide? Next one is going to be the Romanian film where there is a Columbo character, which apparently was one of the top grossing Romanian films of all time at the time. So hopefully we're in for a treat with that.
Anything is better than this. And literally anything.
All
Most
right, Chris,
things.
I got a question for you. Which is better or worse, Mrs. Columbo or Fish?
I was actually going to ask you something similar because that's the only other time we've done this. I don't know. I think probably Fish because we had to watch more of it. I think if I had to watch 2 or 3 more episodes of this show, I'd be like, yeah, get me the fuck out of here. But I think Fish, honestly, here's the thing. Which one feels like more of a stretch?
Gosh, that's tough, man. At least Fish was still a cop.
But he wasn't, though. He was like fucking running a fucking daycare. That's the thing. Like, I almost feel like that is the stretch further.
Yeah, but at least with that, like Dietrich showed up, right? And I want to say Wojo showed up. So there was some parity between. Oh, gosh. It's been a long time since I've seen Enos, the spinoff from the Dukes of Hazzard, but I'd be curious to know how much, because I think that's Enos Goes to the Big City type of thing. So I don't see Roscoe P. Coltrane or Boss Hogg or any of the other Yahoos showing up at his door. God, yeah. You're putting into my mind all of these bad spin-offs of other TV shows like Sheriff Lobo coming off of BJ and the Bear and Archie Bunker's Place and some of these other ones. Gosh, yeah, this is rough, man. This just follows a precedent that was happening a lot. And unfortunately, there were very few really good spin-off TV shows. Of course, after we hang up, I'm going to think of 5 where it's just like, oh yeah, the original show wasn't that good, but the spin-off was even better, which I don't think happens that often. We were talking about MASH earlier, and there's After MASH. There was one called, I want to say it was called Walter, that was about Radar, Walter O'Reilly. But yeah, these are wretched shows.
Put this in that camp because, my God, this is an affront to mystery television. And hey, there's a car chase, though, because that's what Columbo was missing, a car chase.
I'm glad you said that because I was like, what did I just see an unnecessary car chase in? Oh, it was Mrs. Columbo. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even understand why there was a car. There's never been anything remotely action or action adjacent in Columbo, but Mrs. Columbo, on the other hand, Mrs. Columbo is a woman of action.
Reading from Wikipedia, the show received poor ratings, and as part of the efforts to revamp it, the linkage between this Kate Columbo and the Mrs. Columbo of the original television series was reduced. The name of the character was changed to Kate Callahan after an off-screen divorce, and the series was renamed Kate the Detective at the beginning of the 2nd season, followed by Kate Loves a Mystery. So we've got 3 titles for this show within 13 episodes, which is fucking crazy.
You've got to wonder what was going through their minds when they were just, can we just not air it? Nope, we got to change the name. We got those episodes written. It's like, okay.
It's a miracle that they ever aired that 13th episode.
No kidding.
Because it came almost 4 months, over 4 months, because December 6th to 1979 to March 19th, 1980. So over 4 months later.
There was like 2 people waiting with bated breath.
Yeah.
They were like, when's she coming back?
Oh, Love on Instant Replay is going to happen. I know it's going to happen.
God.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, there's not a lot written about this. I read my usual sources. I think Mark Dawidziak wrote 2 pages about this in the Columbo file, and Mr. Koenig not too much more than that, if that. And then there was talk as early as 1982, I want to say, about Columbo coming back. So that's another reason why we're taking this little break and catching up on Columbo ephemera, as it were. And we'll also be talking more about Link and Levinson, stuff that they were actually really involved in. And we'll talk about stuff that Mr. Falk was involved in as well. I don't know. Should we watch Vibes? That's been my biggest struggle right now, because I took all of the movies that I've been interested or TV shows and watching, and I put those through the ringer, and I said, okay, what are the best episodes of these? What are the best, the highest rated of these things? And Vibes came in as dead last. But I don't know. There's just something about it that appeals.
I'll watch whatever.
All right. I know you will. You're a good man.
Given that we've already watched this bullshit, I can't say no at this point, because in good conscience, I should have said no already.
I think this might have been your suggestion, but I'm not going to put that on you, Chris.
I'm a completionist and a masochist, so yeah, it probably was my suggestion.
Yeah.
I blame myself, as they would say.
Yeah, normally I just blame me, but that's okay. All right.
Yeah, hey, lucky you. You can blame me.
So yes, next month we'll be back with Uncle Marin, the Billionaire, also from 1979. Hopefully better than this. By law of averages, it has to be. And then we will go into another 1979 property, Murder by Natural Causes, which was a Lincoln Levinson thing, which I have a personal story to talk about with that one. So I'm very excited to discuss that. But until then, Chris, what are you doing these days?
Just working on podcasts and everything audio related over at weirdingwaymedia.com, where you can find this show and so many other great shows like 80s TV Ladies, The Projection Booth, The Culture Cast, Midnight Viewing. Go check those out. Stop listening to me and go check them out, because this is the end of this episode. What about you, Mike?
Do you think 80s TV Ladies, do you think just because there's one episode of Mrs. Columbo that fell in that decade that they would do a whole episode about Mrs. Columbo?
I really think we should be asking Susan this question.
I think we should too. Yeah.
Right. Susan, how do you feel about Mrs. Columbo? What?
As for me, everything that I do is over at Weirding Way Media as well. It's kind of boring when we get 2 Weirding Way Media guys on here, because we just say weirdingwaymedia.com a bunch of times. I want to thank John Walker for our opening theme and Colin Gallagher for our closing theme. And I want to thank everybody for listening. It's always a good time. Hopefully you survived Mrs. Columbo just like us.